Hi, my name is Poka. So I'm joined by Guillaume, my colleague, as well as Sonny, who is a VP Commercial Digital Health at AstraZeneca. Today, we're going to talk about AI and innovation in healthcare, especially in the how it's going to transform the care and also improve the patient outcome. So, Sonny,
Hi, Poka.
yeah, great to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So generative AI or next gen tech has already impacting everyone's life. So physicians, patients, farmers are all actively adopting generative AI or other forms of AI. So what do you think about AI and how is it going to impact pharma and biotech companies in a way that it communicates and engage external stakeholders in the trend that we all look for more personalized care?
That's a great question. I think that it's a continuation of what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years. So everybody started in AI, and every chapter of AI and every new strength that we're seeing, and now generative AI, and going forward, agentic AI, is just going to open a new chapter of us being able to move faster with more personalization, as you said. So at AstraZeneca, we've been in the AI game for a little while now, both on the R&D side, but also on the commercial side, and predominantly in two areas. First, can we leverage AI to really surface insights that you can action, right? And from a commercial setting or from a promotional setting, that's the recommenders of the world. Like, what's the next best message? Who do I see, when, and what channel do I use, which is important. We have those things in field right now. I think going forward, there'll be more and more tools that are intuitive for field roles to use, things that pop up on their phone that are conversational. And we're going to move, I think, from dashboards and performance reports to search, where you go in and you literally just ask the question, and then the generative AI will give you the best format, the best answer, and the best way of presenting that information. That's very close to happening. I think that will be the next piece. So it's more about being able to use and access the data in a more easy way and a faster and more accurate way. And then from a physician standpoint, we know, just like all of us, we're all users of technology. So the bar for what good looks like gets bigger every day. We want to have things personalized, whether it's Netflix or Amazon or whatever. We need to have the same thinking when we deal with our physicians as well. They demand and expect information provided to them that's timely, that's useful for them, and in a format and a content and a channel that they actually prefer.
Thank you, Sonny. That's very inspiring. In your views, how can digital innovation can help pharma company to increase their speed to market and to enhance the commercialization effort that they are doing every day?
So Guillaume, I think you said the word there, speed.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point here. We have good processes, we are fast, but generative AI and the technology in AI can make us go faster. So for example, what we're doing at AstraZeneca is we're really reviewing our core processes, disaggregating them, and looking for opportunities to automate as we go through that, whether that's the development of content, whether that's development of imagery or formatting of content, or even down to how content is reviewed and approved. And then on the pricing and regulatory side, these are huge dossiers that are very manual. Can we look at those and actually look to accelerate the automation of those? And that's really a great opportunity for Gen AI, because it works well when you have a very fixed output and you can train it well, and it can work for you quite well. Now, it doesn't mean we'll ever take a human out of the loop. I truly believe that won't be the case, but it'll allow those humans to become super at what they're doing and faster.
And you actually predict my next question. So when you think about generative AI, what excites you most about the potential of generative AI in terms of reshaping the pharma value chain and improving the patient outcome?
I think it's great, and it's all about patient outcomes. That's why we come to work. And we've spoken so far about more of the internal things that we can do, whether it's better promotion or connection with the physician or processes that we use. But if we turn our eye to the patient for a minute, I think where we're seeing really a huge opportunity is when we come to look at multimodal data, patient biomarker data, taking that and basically running simulations using that data, which is very deep, and then using that to surface biomarkers that help us predict outcomes, whether that's an outcome of a patient that's going to do better or worse in a certain regimen or not, or is going to progress faster or slower. And that really will allow us to help physicians to make the right decision, especially in a world where there are so many more choices. It's more complicated to deliver healthcare these days. I think having that additional insight based on very specific patient data so you can personalize care is, I think, the next realm of innovation that we'll see, which translates directly to patient outcomes as well.
Thank you, Sonny. You used a lot the word data. And about that, how do you leverage advanced analytics to drive decision making in digital healthcare? And how this work? Do you have example?
Guillaume, it all starts with the data. Everything starts with the data. It's your crude oil and it's your platform that you build on. And if you don't get it right, it doesn't work. And we've all been in examples of that. I think for data, again, as you said, we've been in the AI game for a little while now. One of the things that we did as a priority at AstraZeneca, and I think it was really a really smart move, was to build an in-house capability in the commercial business around data science and AI. And so what that allowed us to do is to build a platform, we call it the AZ Brain, which allows us to collate and curate data, cleanse it, operationalize it, and really bring data in from a broad set of input variables. Once you've done that, then you're in one platform, you can run machine learning operations, you can run and develop your insights, manage drift, and really use those insights to inform activity. And now going forward, we're trying to explore not just the what when it comes to analysis, but the why. And that's where I think, again, generative AI has got a play here, where you can start to understand the drivers of behavior that you're seeing in your data, and then again, correlate that to action that we need to make as well.
Sonny, I've got an advice to ask you. How do we get out of the buzzword about artificial intelligence in healthcare, please?
It's a great question. It's one we all struggle with because there's different layers to it, right? Sometimes we think we're not speaking in buzzwords, and it depends on the audience, yeah? I truly believe that if we need to, and I work on the commercial side of the business, we need to speak business. We need to speak patient, not technology. And I think you lose people if you do that. And so I think it is about actually taking time to think about how you communicate, even very, intricate technology in a very simple way, and using patient outcomes and business outcomes to do that, I think, is one step. And sometimes, it's not about dumbing it down. It's about presenting it in a different way. And I think that's kind of how we've tried to do that. And sometimes it works, and sometimes you think it's going to work and you have to go and try it again as well. But the point, I think, is also critical, and we discuss this a lot at AstraZeneca, is for us to really accelerate towards digital transformation. Everybody has to up their game in terms of digital fluency and data fluency as well. So that's a capability build that we have to do as an industry, and it's not the preserve of one group. We all have to up our game so that we can converse and access technology in a faster way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonny. A lot of farmers have a lot of pilots, a lot of digital solutions in different countries, and you had a global function. How do we ensure scalability of those solutions?
It's a tough one, and it depends on the solution. So we call it pilotitis. It happens. We started with banning pilots, actually, and we said we're not going to do pilots anymore. We're going to do some experiments, and we're going to move very quickly from the ones that we think we can scale into user acceptance testing, and then iterate, and on you go. So it's a little bit about setting the intention up front. The challenge with that is you want people to innovate, you want people to try new things as well. So it's a balance on both of those. But I think if we think about scale right at the get-go of starting to build solutions to problems, that's one piece. I think the other one is that most of the work that we do as a digital group, actually we make sure that those use cases and those examples and programs are actually owned and funded by the business. So already there is a framework within the business to scale. We're set up in regions, we have cross-country collaboration. So that helps on that front as well. There are some areas where there just isn't a supplier that's global, right? Or things are very local, and then you have to approach those by a case-by-case basis, but learnings from them are universal. And I think that's another piece as well. So it's a little bit about thinking about scaling from the get-go.
Thank you, Sonny. And you have an exhaustive view of what is happening in AI in the healthcare industry. For you, what are the space which has not been yet explored?
So it's a great question. I think that I don't know about yet explored, but yet fulfilled for me is more actually on the patient support side, right? We're, I think, really well down the road in terms of personalizing, how we approach physicians, how we support them, how we drive guideline mandated care, how we screen, diagnose, all of these things I think have got a natural lend to technology. However, when we think about the patient, there's so much dichotomy in the patients as well. How do you support them in a really good way? And sometimes it's about taking what works and what's analog and digitalizing it. So, for example, one of our most successful patient support programs at AstraZeneca was a nurse support program that we actually have brought into a digital space. I think, but there's a lot more we can do. Partly it's because as an industry, we've maybe not focused there as much as in other areas. The other area is that, there is a massive, as I said, gradient in terms of patients and their willingness and ability to leverage digital tools. And, again, a lack of global providers as well. So scaling is always a challenge.
And there are a lot of great value in what you do, what AstraZeneca do, and what other pharmas do. But those values sometimes is very difficult to measure. How do you prove the outcome to your internal stakeholders?
Well, Poka, believe it or not, I get asked that one all the time, particularly by my bosses. But you're absolutely true. We have to think about measurement because these things, there's a significant investment in time and resources to develop these things. So again, it's a little bit like the question prior. You've got to think about measurement right from the outset, but also think about how you measure as well. So if we're rolling out a recommender system, for example, that lends itself to an A/B test kind of approach. You can look at areas that have adopted and ones that haven't, and we've shown a difference, and that's very helpful. But for example, when you go all the way down the scale to areas which are more patient focused, how do you measure those, right? It gets a little bit harder to do. But I think there you've got to look for benchmarks. I think that's where benchmarks are very helpful. And that data is increasingly available as well. But it's a tough one.
Sonny, in the morning in a panel discussion, I heard you said there are rich sets of data and you could use the data to identify the gaps in the care pathway. Could you give us a concrete example on that?
I'll give you two. How's that? You'll get double.
Great.
So one is really on the commercial side as well. So we have been looking at with precision where care gaps are happening as well, and then trying to understand why. And by using very broad data sets, we brought in social determinants of health data into the same data tech, into the same AZ brain around the analytics. And it was really fascinating because, again, that's by county level in the US. And then the team could look at what was the driver of the difference in comparative way. And what we found was for some states, some of the most significant drivers of poor outcomes were things like, access to public transport, something you don't typically think about. And again, that allows you to then think, well, how do I work with the local government or what have you to try and address that, or with patient groups to try and address that in the hospitals. That's one example that I think has been real eye-opener for me, actually. The other one I would say is that, and I touched on it a little bit this morning, on the commercial side, we're getting pretty good at predicting patients that are eligible for guideline mandated care, when they're going to show up at their health provider's office and et cetera, and manage our activity, based on that. However, that's the same need as our clinical trials and our late stage R&D folks and our medical folks who are running clinical trials. They're trying to, engage sites where there's good potential and good need as well. So sharing that data, which we typically haven't done in the past, I think is becoming quite a powerful tool. And not just the data, but actually sharing some tools as well. So we've done some analytics, again, using the AZ Brain platform to look at how physicians are networked and how they are connected, how influence flows, where eligible patients are that we're really interested in, but importantly, who's also up and coming from an influencer standpoint as well. And so when you put these things together, you can then find multiple uses for them, whether it's very pure play commercial or field, or whether it's actually clinical trial activity as well.
Actually, looking at the domain of your business, how do you use data analytics to transform care?
It's a great question. So it's been a bit of a journey. So when we first started, we looked at things a little bit in discrete towers. We looked at, how do you engage customers and stakeholders? what does data analytics and machine learning and AI give you? And then how does, looking at care pathway optimization work? Yeah. And what we've found over time and relatively quickly is that the data science and the data analytics actually isn't a tower in of itself. It's foundational to all of those, and we pull those insights across. So an insight that, may inform a very commercial question will also inform, a very patient-facing question or a very institute-specific question as well. So the key thing here is platform foundation, because if you do these things in isolation, you're going to get different results. So again, having one platform where we do conduct most of our key analytics, we can manage drift, we can have a single source of truth that then is very applicable to lots of different settings, whether it's, all the way through the value chain, or all the way to the set of activities that we're trying to drive as well.
And Sonny, you said by yourself before, scalability is a long-lasting question that for pharmaceutical business. Do you have any concrete examples that your team or your function has successfully made a pilot program into a scalable, globally scalable project?
Absolutely. I'll give you one example is what the program we call MAP, or the MDT network program. So it started life as, look, we know there are pockets of brilliance when it comes to delivering multidisciplinary team care. Well, let's make sure that we first connect those institutes that are doing an amazing job, work with them to actually define what makes them so good, publish that, right? So it's a useful tool for other hospitals. That network has grown and grown and grown. It started in Europe. Now we're in the US, Canada, China, Japan. And so we have, I think, nearly 300 sites in that network who are now connected based on delivering best care in a range of tumor types in oncology. That also gives us the framework then to start to build other supports with that network as well. And then, I think that's been a really good example. We've had over 70,000 patients go through a MAP MDT. And we truly believe, and I think it's well proven now, if you've got a good, well-constructed multidisciplinary team, you get better outcomes for the patient as well.
You said before, when you talk about scalability, insights and learnings are very important. What did you learn from the...
Fascinating. So, once you give somebody a mechanism or you create a network, it starts to actually bring ideas back in as well. So, for example, in China, we have a great network as part of the MAP program, but they're now creating their own virtual networks as well. So, exporting their knowledge to, secondary, tertiary hospitals as well. We hadn't got that in the plan, but it just happens. I think the other thing was been really good was, I think last year we published a white paper, which took a lot of work, but was the sort of recipe book for delivering a good MDT. And there was a lot of learnings in that as well that, whilst outcomes are really good, there is an ingredient list, there is a way of doing this. So not just us publishing it, but publishing it with these hospitals, with these centers of excellence. I think that's really, a great value for everybody. And then the last point is, if it works in oncology, it's going to work in other settings as well. So we're exploring other therapeutic areas like ATTR, for example, and trying to do the same methodology there.
And if we want to be a bit prospective, do you think that an AI belonging to AstraZeneca will be able to interact with the agencies in the US, in Europe, in China, in the UK, where the agencies, medical agencies, can ask questions to your AI to have to answer their questions?
I think it's a beautiful dream right now. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think at the moment there's a lot of steps that we've got to go in the way. Guidelines have to change, expectations have to change. Our confidence in the output has to change. We have to think about how we take out bias from the training data, which is actually quite difficult to do. How we have to also make sure that privacy and all of those other compliance things are a step. But, asking questions and getting set responses based on those questions is a relatively good task for the Gen AI to do. But it's all about how you train, what data you've got, how you pull bias out. But I believe that, really for me, Gen AI creates super workers, superhumans. It's not the other way around. And I think that you can't ever take the human touch out, or the cognition or the innovation out. That's not going to come from a machine.
There are a lot of changes coming your way. What keeps you awake at night?
Oh my God. What keeps me awake at night? Actually, for me, I'm incredibly excited by technology. I really am. I always have been. It's a real privilege to be in a role like mine where you've got this big playground. You've got an amazing company with lots of launches, a big aspiration of being at 80 billion by 2030. So all the ingredients are there. I mean, that's a big responsibility, right? And I think I have an amazing team around me. So making sure the team is set up for success, that you create an umbrella for them to innovate, they're the things that keep me awake at night.
Thank you, Sonny. It was a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.